Hey, you guys, thank you so much for coming on for my 5-day sluggish metabolism solution. So I am super pumped you're here. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to do it. If you have already downloaded your 5-day workbook, go ahead and pull that out for me. We're going to go ahead and start with day number 1. All right, so day number 1, we're going to talk all about the metabolism and why we might be feeling wonky and why we might be like trying all these things and weight loss isn't occurring, and maybe we have like excess belly fat, or what are some other ways that we can make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, we're getting our metabolism needs met. And so I wanted to come in here today and spend a good bit of time about all this stuff. So I first wanted to talk about just a quick recap about my story, so that way I can let you in a little bit on my life and kind of what I've gone through and how I can share and support you guys. So for those of you that have been following me for a while, I had severe eating disorder. I was 75 pounds, I was 185 pounds, I had binge and purge, super restrictive, excessive exercise, like every diet, every workout program you can imagine, I did it. And so I spent countless years, decades really, going through so much disordered eating. And so I had totally jacked up my metabolism, just from years of yo-yo dieting, and especially just with that extreme weight loss. So I know a lot of you can relate. A lot of us have food issues. I mean, it's just part of life, and a lot of people don't really want to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it and cut to the chase. So with our metabolism, especially when we yo-yo after years and years of hardcore dieting, we absolutely hear how it affects our metabolism, how it tends to slow our metabolism down, that a lot of times we have to eat less in order to lose weight. We might have to exercise more. And so while that's such a commonality and so many of us do it, I really wanted us to talk about today about just our specific metabolism, ways that we can kind of navigate and troubleshoot our own needs and what we need. And so again, if you have your workbook, I want you to go ahead and pull out day number 1, okay? All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with number 1, like, why do we keep gaining weight? Why do you keep gaining weight no matter what you do? I hear it all the time from my clients. They are slaving at the gym. They're crushing it. They're spending hours at the gym doing tons of cardio, doing tons of weightlifting. And then they're going home and they're barely eating anything. They might tell me, okay, I had a rice cake with peanut butter and I had, I don't know, like a piece of grilled chicken with some lettuce. And so, I mean, those foods are okay, but obviously that's not enough to support our metabolism. So society has such a misconception, and I hope I can drill this in, that when we want to lose weight, over exercise and under eating is not the most effective way to do it, because it's going to completely jack up our hormones, make everything wonky. I'll go into detail about that. So few things. Why are we gaining weight no matter what we do? All right, so I'll start with number 1, and I think that might be eating too little. So again, going back to the seesaw where you are exercising too much, eating too little, and then there's really no homeostasis, no balance in our bodies. And so again, what happens? So you hear it a lot where, say if you're stranded on a deserted island and you have barely anything to eat. So of course what's going to happen, okay, we're going to lose muscle mass, we're going to lose weight, water, all that stuff. But what happens? Our metabolism slows down, right? It slows down to meet our body's needs, so that way it can store it and hold on to really anything that we have. So making sure that we don't eat too little, making sure that you're getting adequate protein, which is another thing I want to talk about. So a lot of my clients do not get enough protein, and it's one thing that's huge. Protein is super satisfying. I know that carbs and fats and stuff are all terrific for us, and I think they're absolutely important for hormone balance and all that good stuff, but we also need our protein. And I know that some women are just petrified of any type of protein. I eat red meat probably twice a week, and all my blood levels are fine. So I think there's just misconception that we're supposed to stay clear of protein. And if you're a vegetarian, that's totally fine, but I think you can definitely meet your needs with getting enough protein. And especially if you are exercising, you have to make sure you're getting enough protein to help rebuild your muscles, to help get all those amino acids in that our body craves, that our body needs, and that we can replenish and restore after doing that long run or doing that heavy strength training session. So super important for muscle growth, making sure you're getting enough protein. All right, and so another one. So it can be like a third thing as far as why we're gaining weight. You know, we're probably yo-yo dieting too much. We're probably still trying to find the next best shiny thing, that next best thing that we think is going to make or break us, that's going to give us the weight loss efforts that we want, and that, you know, oh, if I just try this diet, or if I just do this or cut this food out, then I'm going to lose weight. Okay, well, you can diet all day long. You can try anything all day long. But at the end of the day, if you're constantly like in that deprivation state, overeating state, deprivation, overeating, your body doesn't know the forest from the trees. So it's going to be like, okay, what the heck are you doing to my metabolism? Like, you know, it's going to be, your body's going to want to store onto more fat. It's going to, you know, never know if you're starving it or if you're going to binge and, you know, ingest all these additional calories that we really don't need. So it's such an intricate dance. So making sure that you are eating just enough, like, again, you're not gorging yourself. One thing I like, I'm not too much super big on calorie counting. However, if you feel like you need just like a gauge of how many calories your body needs, you can do stuff like MyFitnessPal. However, I'm not too crazy about the way they do their whole caloric need thing. So usually if you are someone that is looking for more of fat loss, I usually say multiply by 12 with your weight. Then if there's tons of other methods we can do, and I can get into that at another time. But definitely making sure you're getting your needs met. So if you feel like that you just need a starting point, I highly suggest you can check out MyFitnessPal and kind of start there. That's a great starting point. Okay, and so a next one is number 4, why we might be gaining weight. We might be sticking to the old pyramid standards where we're eating tons of breads, we're eating tons of carbs, and we're not eating adequate amounts of protein. And so what happens then? So a lot of times when we're overeating on carbs and fat, our insulin spikes up, our cortisol goes up, and then once that happens, our blood sugar gets all wonky, and then we crash and burn, and then we're going to want more and more and more. And so making sure, again, that you're going back to the necessities of the diet, making sure that you're getting that adequate protein just for blood sugar stabilization, just to get your mind right, to get those healthy amino acids, to get your metabolism up, and to help with muscle growth and hormone stability. And then, you know, also too, I think one misconception that women have is that, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, my husband just lost 10 pounds. Like, how come I haven't lost 10 pounds? And he just cut out, 2 days of French fries. Well, as women, we obviously have more estrogen than men do. And so unfortunately, estrogen, sometimes it has a blessing and a curse, right? So it also plays a role in protecting our body fat to help birth babies and so on. So just be mindful of that too. Okay. So just a quick recap. So again, if you have your sheet, I would go ahead and put down, if you feel like you're gaining weight, you might be eating too little. So making sure you're getting enough macronutrients in your diet. You might be doing too much yo-yo dieting still. It might be time to kind of rein that in and take a look at your diet and see what you need to do to fine tune that. Also making sure that you're getting enough protein, you're getting your protein needs met. Again, a lot of that is dependent upon how active you are. So I usually like to say like 0.9 or 1.2 at most grams of protein per body weight. So I'm not really big on all the number stuff and all that, but it's just making sure you're trying to get enough protein as you can with every meal. So super important, okay? And then finally, I just wanted to touch on one more reason, why we keep gaining weight is that, there's too much stress. We have too much stress going on. I mean, our adrenal glands, are constantly fried. They're constantly fight or flight. I mean, think about it. When we first get up, we're like, oh, I want coffee. Okay, well, that's going to stimulate our nervous system. Oh, okay, well, now I'm sitting in traffic and I'm getting super pissed off because this person in front of me is about to cut me off. Okay, what? Our cortisol spikes. We get super mad. We're like, oh my gosh, I'm not having this. And then we get to work and we're inundated with so many projects, so many duties, blah, blah, blah. Come home, have to get the kids fed. Then we try and exercise, and the only thing we have time for is like an hour of cardio or something. So we do cardio and no strength training, and the stress just goes on and on and on and on. And so it builds on top of each other. And then, at the end of the day, it's like it's not like we're just hanging out on an island, drinking margaritas all day. I mean, we're having to bust our butts and work and live. So definitely finding ways to manage your stress. I'll be talking about that a couple days from now, but those are all some really key points to take away from this. Okay. All right, so number 2. All right, so we've already covered what happens, why we might be gaining weight, no matter what we do. Number 2 is what's up with my belly fat. All right, so I want to first like go into this, that I feel like, people automatically are like, oh, it's your cortisol. Oh, it's your cortisol. And it's so much bigger than that. It's not just like, oh, you have belly fat. Oh, okay, you have high cortisol. Why that plays a part in it. All the other hormones play a significant part in our belly fat too. And a lot of it's dependent on, again, our stress levels, what we're doing. It's not just specifically cortisol. I think that's kind of like a blanket statement. So, cortisol is awesome. It's also, as I had written here, it's a double-edged sword. It can be a blessing and it can be a curse. If we're, of course, if we are overly stressed, if we're doing too much, exercise, or taking on too much responsibility, or we're not getting enough sleep, of course our cortisol is going to spike, and then that doesn't work in our favor, because it causes more body fat, it causes an increase in inflammation, it causes a slower metabolism. So being mindful of that as well. And so then, on the other side though, like cortisol can definitely work in our favor. It can help with fat loss and fat burning. It can help some with inflammation. So again, it's that double-edged sword. And if we're doing too much and have too much cortisol, of course, that's going to do the adverse effect. And whereas if we have our cortisol managed along with all other hormones and everything's running fine, then it's going to work in our favor. So one thing I wanted to touch on here is, so a lot of times, just from it not being just the cortisol itself, we can be doing too much cardio. So that's one thing I talk about a lot in my blogs and stuff. As a former cardio junkie, that's all I did. I thought, okay, I just got to do cardio. That's it. And while I think it's amazing for mental health and just for our heart rate and cardiovascular stuff, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying don't do cardio, because I think it absolutely has its time and place and absolutely has its benefits. However, what I've noticed is that, myself included, I'll tell a client, okay, I want you to go ahead and let's do 20 minutes. Let's do some higher intensity stuff. Let's do this. Then they might start seeing changes and they're like, oh, well, that means I have to do more. So I have to do more cardio and more cardio. And then that completely stresses the nervous system. And so then what happens? So then we get into this negative feedback loop with our cortisols increasing, because our bodies don't know if our cortisol is increased from, we're running from a bear, or we're doing too much exercise, or we're eating the wrong foods. Like our bodies they don't know where it's coming from. They just know that it needs to be protected, and it's just kind of in this fight or flight mindset. So making sure that you're cognizant of your exercise, and that's day 5, so I'm going to cover all that later, but again, just making sure that you keep that in check, and then also remembering too, as females, I think we tend to be ridiculously hard on ourselves and think we can be 100% at everything. And so of course, for the moms out there, you want to be 100% with the kids, you want to be 100% in your job, you want to be 100% at home, you want to have 100% like immaculate body, and it just doesn't work that way, and that's okay. Like, one thing I reiterate to my clients is like, okay, there's sometimes where work takes precedent, and you work out some, but like you don't get it in as much as you normally do, and that's okay. And so again, can't be 100%, or sometimes you might have a little downtime and you're lifting a little bit more or doing a little bit more exercise.